Well, here we go. Good evening. My name's Larry Abels, and welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. Joining me are two of the most distinguished sportscasters you could ever hope to hear from. And let me introduce them. Starting off with our Midwest correspondent, Mr. David Burnett. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great, Larry. Just want to let you know, if I'm not here at the end of the show, it's because I got blown away by the tornado watch that's infected all of Indiana, central Indiana in particular. So winds as high as 70 miles per hour. So
Wow.
I hope I'm still here.
Well, be safe.
We're
Be
hoping
safe,
that
my
that's
friend.
the case too. And for the other people in other parts of the country that are under that watch, I heard there are quite a few tornado watches around the country. Hang in there, buddy.
Indeed. Thank you.
And let me introduce Charles Chuck Snowden, old neighborhood buddy, high school classmate. How you doing, Chuck?
Larry, David, I'm great. Can't wait to get the show started. Looking forward to it. As you know, I love every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So here we go.
All right, let's take it to the hoop. And speaking of hoops, we'll start talking about the NCAA tournament. And I'm going to start with the men. And thanks for the shout out, Randy Page. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Randy.
Okay, so let's start with the games last week in the Final Four. We had Auburn beating Michigan State. Pretty good game. Chuck, did you get a chance to see that game?
I did see some of that game and thought that it went kind of like I had planned, meaning I knew it was going to be a little bit of a rock fight because, you know, Michigan State's tough-minded, Auburn's tough-minded. I thought Michigan State was going to get back in the game when Grooms went down, Gromes. But Auburn prevailed, and Gromes came back in and had kind of a Willis Reed moment. So, yeah.
He did. He couldn't even like raise his arm. I
No.
was really looking at him, and I forgot he was left-handed.
Right.
Hey, what did you think about that game?
Let me just say this. I have been forced to cheer for Auburn, even though I despise Bruce Pearl, the sleaze bag that he is. But the reason I'm cheering for Auburn and cheered for Auburn against Michigan State is they are my team, unfortunately, in the bracket where I can win $1,000.
We know where your priority is.
You didn't let your feelings get in the way of your wallet, right?
I didn't even intend to pick Auburn. The computer picked them, and my other brackets I picked and didn't turn out so well.
Hey, Greg, thanks for joining us again. We do appreciate you and Kung Fu, boy. I tell you, pretty loyal, so appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Greg. Good to hear from you. Okay, so the other game we had in that bracket was Florida against Texas Tech. Pretty good game. Florida ends up winning by 5. David, what did you think of Florida's performance?
I turned the game off because I thought Texas Tech had it wrapped up. I turned back on, and Florida found a way to come back and win. Florida's a tough-minded team. I don't think, honestly, that they can win the national championship, but you never know. Texas Tech, very athletic, strong team. I feel badly for them. You get that far and you have a lead, and then you lose the lead and lose. What else can I say?
Chuck, your opinion on Florida
so,
and Texas
so
Tech.
I'm
going to kind of go with David. There's been a couple of games when I thought Florida was gone, and especially this one, and they were able to come back and win. What do you think about
it? Oh, my goodness.
UConn was the same way. They played UConn. UConn, I thought, had them, and they beat UConn in overtime. So, look, I have Florida winning it all. So I'm rooting for Florida. But now that I've watched them in the tournament, I'm a little disappointed with them. What I really think is they're soft, like the bigs on that team. And I know this is unfair, but I just think they're soft because Texas Tech and UConn, they just had them in it. They just throw the ball into the whoever, and they just go to the bucket and score. The thing about Florida, though, they have that closer, that Walter Clayton Jr., and he seems to carry them at the end of these ball games, and they make their free throws. Texas Tech missed a ton of free throws, two sets of 1-and-1s. I'm serious. With 4 minutes to go, Texas Tech was up 9, and I still don't know how they lost that game.
I think you hit the nail on the head, missing the front ends of those 1-and-1s.
Oh, that was big.
and they just
That's
couldn't.
a killer.
Greg Finn, I think you're right. They're very good down the stretch. The other teams leaves their door open a little bit. They walk right through it. So the other side of the bracket, we got Duke, and they took on Alabama, beat them pretty easily by 20 points. Chuck, how good is Duke?
You know what? I underestimated them, Larry, coming into the tournament. I'm talking about, when we were setting up our brackets and so forth. I didn't realize how strong Duke was. Duke is pretty daggone tough. And it's not just Cooper Flagg, right? This guy Knoppel, or whatever his name is, number 7. This guy Proctor, the shooter. And they've got other people. They have 5 or 6 guys that can go. And they're better than I thought. And we got to keep an eye on Duke now.
David, what about Duke against Alabama?
Well, I will slightly disagree with Chuck.
Okay.
Without Cooper Flagg, they don't win. I mean, he's one of several very good players. He's arguably the best player in college basketball this year. But without him, Duke does not win. There's something about what he's able to do and transfer to his teammates that makes Duke dangerous, and Duke can win. Now, will this coach follow in Coach K's footsteps? Maybe he's part of the legacy. So you never know.
I thought Duke hadn't been tested enough because they are in the ACC, and I know it was a down year in the ACC, and I just wasn't sold on Duke. But the other day, for example, Cooper Flagg only had 16 points, was kind of average. He was the 3rd leading scorer on that team. He didn't play great. He played fine, but he didn't play great. But they got other guys. And this guy, Knoppel, number 7, I'm telling you, he could be a lottery pick or at least picked in the first round as well. And I think Proctor is going to be in the NBA as well in the first round. He's the guard. So it ain't just Cooper Flagg and the Flaggettes, I'm telling you.
Well, I hear you, and I agree with part of what you're saying. But if you take Cooper Flagg out of the lineup, if you diminish him, Duke does not win. He's that good. He's a generational talent.
But that's true. That's true with all the good teams that are left. If you took their star player off the team, how effective
they would struggle.
Yeah, you take Gromes off that team. Auburn's not the same team either. So,
good point. Now, one guy in here, either of you mentioned, and I can't remember his name, the big man for Duke
from Sudan.
Yeah. What do you think of his game?
I like him, but he only does 2 things to me. He guards that rim, which is huge.
Yeah.
Which is huge. Yes. And he rebounds, but he doesn't have the offensive skills set yet, except for the alley-oop dunk. But he guards that rim and he rebounds, and that's for what they need on that team. That's huge.
Can we name a player who was like that 40 years ago, who only had really one side of the game at that point? Hakeem Olajuwon. He was not a fully developed player at that time. And sometimes maybe this young man is going to develop. He's got one side of the game starting to be mastered. On the defensive side, give him some time.
Right.
He'll get better. He'll get better offensively.
Hakeem by his junior year was fully developed, but his first year he could hardly even stand up. This guy definitely, you don't go to the hole on him, and he's a vacuum cleaner on missed shots.
He's tough. Patrick Ewing as a freshman for Georgetown, he was like that too. Now, Patrick's offensive skills were not refined, but boy, you couldn't score on Patrick underneath that bucket, and there were no second shots.
They're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
So, move on to the next game, Houston against Tennessee. How do you guys feel about that? Chuck, we'll start with you.
So, I got to tell you, I'm rooting for Houston. Okay, so I have Florida and Houston in my bracket, and I have Florida beating Houston when we first started. But I've just fallen in love with Houston, and I'm pulling for Kelvin Sampson in a big way. And they don't have McDonald All-Americans. You talking about rock fight. They just come, and they're smaller than most teams, but they just fight you, man. They fight you, and it ain't no joke. And it's from top to bottom. And that out-of-bounds play that they ran against Purdue, with 2 seconds to go to win that game, I thought it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
I cannot see why people don't guard the ball, the inbound pass on that, though.
Well, it's funny. It's funny, Larry. He started. Braden Smith is the guy. He started out guarding the inbounds. Then Cryer ran to the corner on a double pick. He thought that's where the ball was going to go.
Yeah.
I just think Houston's coaching staff saw something in the way Purdue guards the out of bounds in that case, and they set him up, and then they executed it well, because the guy who threw the ball in bounds, he had to get his 2 feet in quickly to make sure he was, in bounds, made a perfect pass, dunk, game over. I just thought they executed the hell out of that.
Well, they definitely executed and set them up well. No argument there. David, what did you think about that game and those teams?
Houston's a heck of a team. They've got a great coach, and you know how I feel about Kelvin Sampson. He's been treated so poorly here in Indiana.
Agreed.
I just can't get past that. So I've been rooting for Houston all the way. They played dominating defense. They listen to their coach. He executes. He is in his, how many Final Fours is he at with Houston now? Is that 3?
I think you're right. I know they've been number one. I know they've been number 1 seed 3 years in a row.
Just a well-coached team. And let me just say this, Purdue had a chance against Houston.
Played them well.
But Purdue just doesn't have the athleticism to win. They just didn't. And Kaufman Wren, he's not an athlete. But David, I know you said that to me earlier while the game was going on. But David, that guy has been very, very effective for Purdue this year. He's a very good college player, and I guess I'm looking at him at the next level. He has no opportunity at the next level. He's not good enough.
Yeah. He's first team all Big Ten.
Well, there's a lot of people first team all Big Ten that didn't play in the NBA.
Does Houston have enough? Because I like them defensively too. My question is about on the other end of the court.
I know. It's a good point
to give Duke a game, Chuck.
It's a good point, Larry. However, in the game the other day against Tennessee, they hit some threes in that game. They were hitting those outside shots. I don't know if they do it consistent enough game after game, but if they hit shots, they're going to be tough to beat.
David, you think they have a chance against Duke?
Of course they have a chance against Duke. Yeah, they have a chance, but I think the most talented team is Duke. The most scrappy, hard-nosed team is Houston. The luckiest team is Florida, and the cheatingest team is Auburn.
And let me say this about the Duke Houston game. Duke is young. Knoppel is a freshman. Flagg's a freshman. I think Houston either is the oldest team in the tournament, meaning they got a lot of 23, 24, 22-year-old cats. And maybe that might make a difference. They are very, very, very tough-minded.
Well,
I saw a clip of their practice where they literally do this drill every day where they dive on the floor. Like they literally dive on the floor.
Well, they better be diving into the basket. I will simply say that. Because the scrappiness is only going to get you so far. I'm cheering for Houston. I'm cheering for Kelvin Sampson, but Houston does have an Achilles heel.
Yeah, they don't shoot well.
They don't shoot well.
No.
And Duke has that monster in the middle. So, David, you talked about the scrappiest team and the cheating team being Florida and Auburn, respectively. Who wins that game?
Well, my money says it's got to be Auburn. I don't want them to win, but I want my money to win. So I'm cheering for Auburn with reluctance.
Okay. Chuck, who wins that game?
I'm pulling for Florida in the Florida-Auburn game. Again, I'm riding with Florida till the end because I chose them at the beginning, but I wouldn't be disappointed if they lose. They already beat Auburn earlier in the year. And they've won 34 games this year, so it's not like they're chopped liver. But I thought their bigs were a little tough. I thought going into the tournament, I thought their bigs were a little tougher than they really are.
Okay. Who wins it all, Chuck?
Florida over Houston by a bucket at the buzzer.
David, who wins it all?
My money says it's got to be Auburn, but my realistic side says Duke is going to win it all.
Okay. And that might depend on how healthy Broom is, because he really was playing with one arm the other day.
It's like he can't do that, I don't think, successfully against this team at this level.
Yeah.
I guess for you, David, this is the definition of mixed emotions, right? Because you'll be sitting there rooting for Auburn, and I know how you feel about Auburn. So that is the definition of mixed emotions.
Well, let me be totally transparent. The best I can do is finish second in this pool because I'm tied with I'm 1 point behind a woman who has the same Final Four as I do and the same 2 teams in the championship game. So I can't win.
And she's done 1 point better during the early part of the tournament.
At some point.
Yeah.
At some point. So maybe I get second place money, which I don't think is going to be that good.
So we talked about this a little earlier, but I want to know what players have impressed you. Chuck, you had named a few. Mind repeating some of the guys that?
Okay, that's a good question. So the question is, so Flagg obviously is an impressive player. I think he's been tough. But Walter Clayton Jr., I don't know if everybody coming into this tournament knew who he was. He got a little bit of Steph Curry, Eddie Jordan type flair with him, especially Steph. He can knock down threes at critical times. He's cool under pressure, great free throw shooter. He's making himself some money. So Walter Clayton, Flagg, this guy Knuppel from Duke, I think he's tough. Of course, we talked about Gromes. Who else did I like in this thing? There was another player that I liked.
You mentioned Proctor earlier.
Who?
Proctor for Duke.
Yeah, Proctor, the other guy who I think is making himself some money in this thing. And Houston, Florida has this kid named Houck who comes off the bench. And he had 20 points the other day, and he's a good shooter, 6'10", 6'9", can stretch the floor. So I think those are a couple of names that you have to keep an eye on. Houston has this guy, L.J. Cryer. He's tough, too. Yeah, those are some of the names.
Greg Fenner screaming, Clayton!
Clayton!
Yes, definitely good. David, what players have really caught your eye?
Cooper Flagg. I wanted to make sure that he was what he's supposed to be, and he is what he is. He's really that good. Clayton is pretty good too. But beyond that, I'm not a seer of the great college players this year, other than Cooper Flagg.
He mentioned Sear. Alabama has a guard named Sears, who everybody knew about coming to the tournament. He had a terrible game the other day, and I think that helped them lose that game. He played great against BYU. They scored 115 points, Alabama, against BYU, but he did not play well the other day.
It was BYU.
So did I ask you guys who's going to win it all?
Say that again.
Who's going to win it all?
Florida.
David, who do you think?
Duke. I want it to be Houston. I need it to be Auburn, but it'll be Duke.
Larry,
which means it'll probably be Florida.
How about you, Larry?
I think Duke's going to do it. They look like they have a very balanced team. Lots of good players.
Yeah.
Even if Cooper Flagg gets into foul trouble, I still think they got enough junk in their trunk, to be competitive.
They're young.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good point, because usually in these situations, experienced teams win, but all of these teams have won at least 33 games. So they figured out how to win some of these close games along the way. Okay, let's move to the ladies' side.
Hey Larry, before you move, not to take up or screw your schedule up, I just want to get you guys' thoughts, because we all have this affiliation to DC area. So the Maryland head coach took the Villanova job. And to me, this is to Chuck. There's no way when Maryland has a 14, 15,000 seat arena on campus, it's a hotbed DMV for basketball talent. Philadelphia's an hour and a half away. Richmond's an hour and a half away. Baltimore's 45 minutes away, etc. How could the Villanova job which doesn't have an on-campus or has a small on-campus arena, how could the Villanova job be better than the Maryland
Well,
job?
let me offer you these thoughts on
They're a
that.
little closer to Philadelphia than we are.
Let me offer you these thoughts
New
on
York.
that. Maryland is dual purpose. They got football, and they're getting a little bit better in football. They've got basketball, which is their pride and joy. Villanova is Villanova. They have a Division II level, a
Football.
1AA level football team. Everything is focused on basketball. They're a triple national championship squad. There's a lot to like about Villanova. I can see why he may have chosen Villanova. I could see that. I mean, no, their facilities do not match Maryland. The university does not match Maryland, but focus on basketball does match Maryland.
Okay.
But that was a stated reason. He was kind of upset because he had to share too much with the football team.
Loxley.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and he's coming from Seton Hall, which is just like Villanova, primarily a basketball school. His argument was that Maryland was more competitive in the Big Ten as a basketball team than as a football team. Might have had some validity to it, but when you go, football brings the money in. So when you go to a school that got a football team, they're going to get their share of the money. So,
well, I was surprised. That's all.
Well, the athletic director left too. So
I know he did. He put the SMU.
There was a lot of change there. So I don't know. Maybe he just wanted to go.
They're bringing in Buzz Williams to be the head coach from Texas A&M. So again, in college basketball and football, it's a lot of changing, musical chairs. That was
a quick hire, though.
That
was a quick hire, which says to me some stuff was in the works all along.
Well, once they found out their coach was leaving, yeah,
had to be.
Yeah,
they don't even have an AD either, David. They did this hire without an AD.
Well, sometimes it happens at the
and quite frankly, seriously, Kevin Willard, who is he? My point is, I don't think the Buzz, I think it's the same. In other words, I don't think Willard is any better than Buzz Williams, to be honest with you. So
in this whole NIL world, it's a whole different ball game.
It is,
literally,
no doubt.
All right, let's move on to the ladies. We have UCLA beating LSU and UConn beating USC. Unfortunately,
no Juju
Watkins, who I think was named the Player of the Year today, gets injured. In that bracket, UCLA, UConn, how do you think those two teams match up? Chuck, we'll start with you.
UConn is dangerous because they got three players, right? They got Becker, they got the freshman Sharon, they've got Asa Fudd from Washington, D.C. But UCLA is tough. They're tough-minded. Guy has a big center who's tough. Kiki Rice, another girl from D.C., is on that team. So I like UCLA to nip UConn. But it's UConn's got a lot of experience, obviously, with Gino and good players. Should be fun. Should be a fun game, but I'll go with UCLA.
David, what do you think about those two teams and their potential matchup?
UConn in a blowout.
Wow.
They have the best coach. They have arguably one of the two top players in women's college basketball in Paige Beckers. They're going to win, and they're going to win decisively. I think UCLA has not been in any kind of contention for anything in women's college basketball since Cheryl Miller. Literally 40 years. 40 years. So I think Lauren Betts is a good player. She's tall, she's rangy, she's good, but they're not going to win. They're not going to beat UConn. They're not.
Now keep in mind, they've only lost 2 games this year,
USC.
to USC. And they finally beat USC which sounds strange to me, the Big Ten championship, which really sounded strange.
But I'm sorry, UCLA just doesn't have they don't have the experience at this level. They just don't.
They've got about 3 women that have great outside shots, and when they work their inside game and outside game, and I think this is going to be the best game. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but they have a good inside game where normally teams have to double and triple team bets. And when she passes out of there, which she doesn't always do, but when she passes out, they have people that can hit open shots, and I can see their success. But Connecticut, just think about it. If they win, if they can beat UCLA and have to face South Carolina, they will have faced 3 number 1 seeds, on their way to the championship. And that'll be quite a story there. And like David said, they got the tradition. I just look at this year's team. The coaches,
right.
Tradition, but the players playing now are definitely very good. I am looking forward to this game. I just think it's going to have the potential to be the best game, one of the best games ever. I guess.
Well, we'll talk about that next Wednesday.
Yeah.
I just think it's a blowout. I just do. And I've been wrong a lot in life.
I'll be surprised if it's a blowout.
Right.
Yeah, they might beat them, but I'll be surprised.
All
South
right.
Carolina and Texas, another a rivalry where they played 3 times this year. South Carolina ended up winning the SEC championship, but they split during the regular season.
Yep.
What do you think about those players?
So I think USC, like Florida or University or South Carolina, they've been living on the edge, and I'm not as scared of this South Carolina team as I have in the past. I don't know much about Texas except for they have this girl named Booker who's pretty good. That game's going to be closer again than you think. It's a coin flip. And I picked Texas to upset South Carolina.
Okay. I don't know which one is ranked higher, but they're both number 1 seeds.
They're right there.
Yeah.
Maryland, South Carolina, Maryland had them on the ropes and almost got them and let them off the hook and lost by 4 in their game with them the other day.
Well, let's talk about that game for a second. What did I kind of felt the same way. It seemed like South Carolina, not saying the referees cheated, but they got all the calls the last, and they may have been legitimate calls. I'm not even judging that.
Right.
But up until that point, up with about the last minute, that game was really incredible.
It looked like Maryland was going to steal it. Maryland didn't. I don't know. I know it's hard to measure what this word I'm getting ready to use. They didn't show me the toughness down the stretch, and South Carolina just kind of like bullied them for rebounds and not letting Maryland get a decent shot, and just the toughness of South Carolina, I thought was the edge in that Maryland game.
So, David, South Carolina, Texas, what do you think about that game?
Well, one team has Dawn Staley as a coach, another team doesn't.
I think David likes the jockeys or the trainers for the horses, as they would say at the Kentucky Derby, because he likes Gino, he likes Dawn.
Dawn Staley gets her team together. This is her 5th Final Four, 5th in a row. I think it's 5 in a row. South Carolina has a winning pedigree. They don't have the players that they've had in years past,
right?
But they have the coach, and I think she's going to coach one of the games of her career to get them past Texas.
She'll have to.
But she's going to even need more to beat UConn, because UConn spanked them earlier in the season
by 30 in South Carolina.
So
I think they lost on successive Sundays against Texas and
UConn. University of Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand about the women's game this year.
The record's 35-3, so those are 2 teams. You lose to top teams like that, that means you're pretty good.
Right. Well, I don't understand about the NCAA women's tournament. Whatever happened to Notre Dame? Notre Dame has 2 tough little guards. I know, David, you're right out there in Indiana. I don't know. Notre Dame fell off, and I don't know why or how or something. Something happened there or something.
Well, they were number 1 for a couple of weeks earlier in the season. Women's there's a 2-tiered or 3-tiered system in women's basketball. You've got the Notre Dames, the Stanfords, the LSUs, the South Carolina. Now maybe we can even include UCLA and USC in that mix, and UConn, Tennessee. and then you got everybody else. You saw those lopsided scores,
Right.
you know, and a lot of the teams that were whooping teams by lopsided margins were playing at home. So the women's game has to kind of get these games off of the home court of the better team. I don't particularly care for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost to TCU at TCU, I'm pretty sure, in the tournament. And TCU has a good team. I mean, they had a home game.
Have that little guard who transferred from LSU, who transferred from Louisville.
Yeah. Like Van Lith or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's her.
Yeah.
Katie Van Lith or something like that. Right. Haley Van Lith.
Yeah.
And she's somewhat controversial, right? What did she
I think she has how should I say this? Anxiety. So she's got a.
Yeah, she spoke out. She came out and talked about it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good for her.
Good for you, exactly.
So what players in the women's tournament have stood out to you guys? David, we'll start with you.
There's just one player that captures my imagination, and she has battled injuries. It's Paige Beckers, period. She's the best player remaining in women's college basketball. I'd say Juju Watkins if she hadn't hurt her knee.
Right.
But Paige Beckers is head and shoulders the best female player in the country right now. Now.
Nobody else has really got your attention.
Well, Lauren Betts from UCLA, but she's tall and gangly. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of basketball players are tall. Just want you to know that.
Yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was tall, right?
Well, wait a minute. You're comparing apples to strawberries.
I know.
Chuck, who's caught your eye? And it's okay if they're tall too.
Obviously, David's right. Paige will be the number one pick in the draft. She's tough, and Juju should be optimistic because Paige has come back from a similar knee injury. So has Asa Fudd. Asa's on that team. She came back from a knee injury as well.
A number of them.
So those two. This girl, the lady at Texas, Booker, she's tough. Who else is good out there? South Carolina, and I can't remember her name. And I'm gonna probably say this wrong, and I'm sorry if I do. Yes, the white. Yes. She's tough too. So those are just a couple of names. Of course, Lauren Betts, and so we'll see. We'll see what happens in the Final Four.
Who wins it all, Chuck?
Oh, I think UCLA will win it.
Who wins it all, David?
UConn.
Robert,
I don't want that to be the case, but I think it'll be UConn.
What's up, Robert? Hey, David, if it's UConn, that is a hell of a job Gino has done with that team. If they win it all,
he's just a great coach. I always wondered how would he be as a coach of men's basketball. Probably just the same.
I think I saw something that said, I could be wrong about this, but it said UConn has made 31 straight Sweet 16s. 31 years in a row, Sweet 16s.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, Booker, Greg, you're right. From Texas.
Yeah. Lots of good ballers out. This women's tournament just is doing it for me. I think I've been telling you guys for the last couple of years, the more I watch women's basketball, it's real basketball. I think UCLA is going to win it. But I'm kind of hoping that Connecticut runs the gauntlet and knocks off all the number one teams. I just think that would
be a cool. There's a lot of cool stories because I like Dawn Staley too. I don't dislike Dawn. And Texas is kind of the newcomer to the group. So I find it fascinating. The fact that we, the real fellas, are talking about the ladies' games and spending this kind of time on it, it's all good in my opinion. And as I've said to you guys, even a year or two or three ago, if I could invest in a product, I'd be investing in the women's game. I think it's got a chance to really take off, not only in college, but in the pros.
So let me throw a question out to you guys, and it might touch on something Chuck you may have mentioned before. We've got 7 of the top 8 seeds playing in the Final Four. All right, and excuse me, yeah. Did I get that right? No, we got all three out of the last 4. I'm sorry, 3 out of
Right.
the 4 top seeds playing in the Final Four, and we got the team that's the only 2 seed happened to play the number 1 seed with their best player out. Not saying that USC would have beaten UConn, but it probably would have been a better game had Juju with there. How do you guys feel about that? Is this the way things going to be? Are the posters getting it right, or the people making the rankings just got it right this year? Hey, Charles.
Hey, Charles, thanks for joining us. We haven't heard from you in a while. We appreciate you checking in, brother. Look, I don't, Chuck Snowden doesn't have a problem with this. I don't have a problem with no Cinderellas and all that good stuff. I want to see the best teams. I think this is the best group, both on the women's and men's side. And that's really what I want to see on the last weekend of the season.
So I'm okay with it. You kind of answered the question. I didn't even phrase it right. I was going to ask, did you miss the Cinderellas, or do you like this? Do you like it like this? David, what do you think?
What I like about women's basketball and what's going to happen going forward is that the game is going to evolve. You're seeing better and better female players, more skilled players. You see some of the moves behind the back. Now, they still miss a lot of layups. I still have a problem with that. And we see them. They're not going pro until after their junior year, if then. Paige Beckers, she's 5 years at UConn. There's just something about the game, and they're getting better as players, and they play the game the right way.
Well, the McDonald's women's and men's high school game was on last night, and on the women's side, they had some ball players on that, in that McDonald's game. That was like, whoa. So
they're getting better and better.
I agree.
How do you feel about the top seeds being dominating this year versus having a Cinderella?
Sometimes the selectors get it right. They got it right on both sides of the ball. I mean, on both sides, men and women, because you got all number 1 seeds with men, and you've got 3 out of 4 with women. And the women's game is a little bit easier to kind of pick.
Right.
But, why not have the best play the best? And then
we better get used to it for a minute, because with the NIL money and the portal situation, I think all the big schools will be right here. I think we're going to be talking about them next year. The top teams.
I think it's great when we have down the stretch where we really don't know who's going to win. I mean, it's really any of these teams are capable of winning any of that,
on both sides.
Yeah, some we may feel a little stronger about, but it's not going to be a real shock if any of the remaining teams win it. Mm-hmm. Even the number 2 seed, which we think has a great chance of winning it.
I think the people, though, Larry and David, the people who are in charge of college, especially on the men's side, football and basketball, going forward with this NIL and portal and player movement, coaching movement, money, whoever's in charge of trying to figure this out going forward, they got their hands full, man. Because I think it's complicated.
Could be. All right. We're going to move on to the NBA. Night before last, great game was on TV. Lakers and Rockets back and forth. And both of these, I'm picking this game because both of these teams are kind of jockeying for like fourth, anywhere between 3rd and 5th place, to tell you the truth. Lakers pulled the game out. But what struck me with this game, it seemed like everybody on both teams had between like 14 and 20 points. I mean, 4 or 5 people like that. Really good basketball. Chuck, I know you're a big Laker fan. And you were one of the people that mentioned the Rockets early when people, first we thought it was a flash in the pan, but they're still here now. Which one of those teams do you think will really show best in the playoffs?
I think it'll be the Lakers. I think the Rockets, obviously they're very, very young. Look at, next year or 2 or 3, they'll be right there. I think it'll be the Lakers. The Lakers have, you mentioned balance. they've got a lot of balance with Austin Reeves playing as well as he's playing, Luka, and LeBron's. He's not. He's coming off the injury. He's just kind of getting his legs back. But they got a lot of balance now on the Lakers team, and they can win a lot of ways. So that was a good game.
Very evident the other night.
Yeah.
David, between those two teams, the Rockets and Lakers, which one do you think would do the best in the playoffs?
I didn't see the game. The Rockets. I would say the Rockets over in the long haul will go further because they got the better coach. The inexperienced coaches with the Lakers, and you know how I am tonight about coaches. The Rockets are young, like Chuck was saying.
Yeah.
But they're energetic. They know how to win. They're being coached well and coached hard. And that matters. The Lakers, JJ Redick has done a hell of a job as a first-time head coach. Hell of a job. Lakers are well-rounded, and they have incorporated Luka very well. And they've encouraged Luka to play better as well, particularly on the defensive side, which he has almost zero defensive skills.
Well, I mean, that's his reputation, but for some reason, they seem to be able to get something out of him at crucial times. Not necessarily the whole game, but when he needs to make a play, he seems to make a play sometime.
And he looks in better shape. You know how I feel about that.
Well, if he's ISO'd if they set a pick situation and he's ISO'd against Halliburton, it's going to be hard for him to keep Halliburton in front of him.
Whoa. Why you pick on Halliburton?
No, I'm complimenting Halliburton.
On Halliburton.
Okay.
That
Luka can't keep. Yeah, Luka won't be able to stay up with somebody with that quickness and speed. But remember Larry Joe Bird, and I know how you feel about him, David, the way I do, same way I do. He was thought of not to be the greatest defensive player, but his IQ was so smart. And I think Luka is a version of this, that he knows how to play passing lanes. He knows where to be sometimes from a box out standpoint. So he tries to make up for some of his physical shortcomings in that regard.
First of all, Larry Bird was much more athletic than people give him credit for. He averaged a high 9 rebounds per game, 24 points per game for his career. He was a much better athlete than given credit for, because if we just throw out, well, he couldn't jump, he could jump. He could jump high enough. He could. We
were talking about defense, David, not athleticism.
Well, athleticism does matter. And you mentioned defense. He averaged 9-point-something rebounds per game for his career. That's pretty good.
know, but he never made anybody's all defensive team. Larry Bird.
Sometimes it becomes reputation.
Well,
he played well enough. He played well enough on the defensive side.
A big difference.
I agree.
Bird was guarding forwards as opposed to Luka's going to have to guard guards. That's really going to be
the quickness.
Yeah, right. That's going to be a big difference there. Hey, this week Memphis fired their coach. His record was 44-29, and it was only 9 games left of the season, and they were, I think, Ja missed 30 games, and they're like in the playoff mix. What gives? Chuck, what do you think about that?
I was hoping, Larry, because I know you are, a little deeper into this than myself, anyway. I was hoping to ask you that question, that perhaps you could give me some insight, because it didn't make sense when it happened. I haven't heard much after the fact. I haven't heard anything yet that said this is why that happened. It's bizarre. It really is strange. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
David, did this strike you strange as well?
It strikes me very strange, because a 44-29 record is pretty damn good. Right. Which suggests that there's something behind the scenes that we don't know about that's going on with the team. You still have Ja. Now he's being investigated for making the gun gestures.
I saw that.
At what point does a guy grow up? He's not a full-grown man yet. He's still very immature. And so it could be Ja and Taylor Jenkins are at odds. And who's going to win that battle? The superstar player, every time.
A lot of people point to Ja, but I haven't seen anything that would indicate that. So one thing that did happen, management fired all of his assistants before the start of the season for some reason. So it made me wonder, normally you don't do that. You don't fire the coach's assistants. Ja doesn't play 30 games, and they're still 15 games above 500. You know what it reminds me of? Was it last year or 2 years ago when
LeBron,
Milwaukee's coach was 30-13 and he got fired? He had like the second best record in the league. Adrian Griffin? Then they
from the Bucks, from the
they were
Milwaukee
like
Bucks.
30-13. Then they brought in Doc Rivers, who probably didn't even.
But the difference is that Taylor Jenkins has been the head coach of Memphis for 6 seasons. So
And that was early in the year.
Personal. It feels personal.
30-13 seems pretty similar to me too.
But that guy was a first-time head coach. He was a first-time head coach.
Well,
he's been with the team as an assistant. But it's not a good comparison, I don't think.
In both situations, it's hard to see why either one of them got fired. And I'll say the same thing about Bickerstaff in Cleveland. Yeah, he took a team that was really down in the dumps. One year they make the playoffs, and next year they advance to the playoffs and lose against the team that wins the championship, and he gets fired. I'm like, I don't understand coaching decisions.
Although in that case, it doesn't, seems like Cleveland in that case, for them made the right move because their record is even better than I think people thought it was going to be.
Well, I think they had put that team together. Now the team he's coaching now has won more games this year than they had the last 2 years combined. And
right.
So I think he's got something in his pocket that works well too. I guess my whole thing is I have no idea what these.
You know what Greg Fenner thinks? Greg Fenner thinks, for example, if Oklahoma City does not advance this year in the playoffs, that coach will be fired. And I say that only to say maybe sometimes these owners think this coach can take you to here, but they can't get you to the next step. And that's why they make the change, I guess.
But why do you fire a coach with 10 games to go?
Yeah, I don't.
Winning record, 15 games over 500 or something like that. I don't get it. I don't get
it. After you fired all of his coaches at the start of the year, it's almost like you wanted him to fail,
And he did.
Could be.
He didn't.
And he's not failing, so we're going to go ahead and let him go.
Right.
Well, or maybe the coach is doing things behind the scenes with somebody's wife or whatever.
Well, let me ask you this question: Is the guy? So who's the coach of the Memphis now? Is it one of the current assistants?
I think so. And I it's a guy that has some success over in Europe with a more up-tempo game. So management is saying, that's what Ja needs. But Ja missed 30 games this year. They still 44.
And by the way, Ja did miss 30, and Ja's not exactly. He's still really, really good, but he's not as good as he was earlier. Does that make sense? Like, Ja still hasn't taken that next step.
He's immature.
Yeah.
Let's just call it the way it is.
Right.
He's an immature player.
What happens with him, Chuck, is he plays well, he starts playing well, then he gets hurt, and then he has to build back up. So it's like a cycle what I see with him. I see him getting there. He's there now. Let's hope he stays healthy for the playoffs, or avoid suspension otherwise. That's the other thing.
Well, stop making gun signals with your hand. I mean, grow up. I don't respect him. He's a good player, but I don't respect him.
Well, I think his father has been banned from the Memphis games. I don't think he's allowed to come anymore.
Well, like father, like son. I guess.
There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna move over to the NFL. This week the NFL had a few rule changes, and I want to get you guys' take on it. They had like 3 rule changes that we'll talk about, and there was 2 things that were proposed that were not accepted. Overtime in regular season will be the same as the playoffs. You got with a 10-minute overtime period. You guys like that? David, we'll start with you.
Well,
I guess. A possession.
I guess. I mean, it was bound to come to that. Might as well give it a try. The one thing about the NFL is they will make changes. They will make adjustments to the #1 team sport in America.
What do you think about that, Chuck?
Well, you know, this is all for us in this show. This started the day Buffalo played Kansas City. And when Buffalo, that went overtime, and then Kansas City went down and scored. Buffalo never got a chance to get the ball back. They made the change for the playoffs that gives the two teams a chance to do it, right, if one team scores. And now they're just doing it for the regular season. And I think it's the right thing. I don't want a coin flip to determine to me if I win or lose a game.
Is 10 minutes enough time? Is it the right? Because one of the proposals was to make it a 15-minute overtime period. Do you think 10 minutes is good?
10 minutes is fine.
Yeah,
What do you think is fine?
yeah. As long as everybody's playing by the same rules, that's okay with me.
Okay. Well, you know, sometimes when I was thinking about 15 minutes, that might give the team that wins a coin toss the ball.
Injury
twice.
factor.
They may have got it twice. What's wrong with a tie? Speaking of injury factors, is anything wrong with them leaving a regular season game as a tie? David?
Betters.
Okay.
Betters.
Well, I mean, those bets will be resolved whether it's a tie or not.
Well,
That's another option for them, actually.
gambling has taken over professional and college sports.
Yeah, but a tie is not going to impact that. If a team is favored by 1 point, you have a tie. The team that's favored doesn't cover.
Well,
I'm not a big tie person. I don't like ties.
Okay.
And I believe that if you're competing, if you're, you know, and you're out there fighting and, you know, you want to see who wins that game.
Yeah.
Now, again,
I really just brought it up because David mentioned rightfully that, you know, 15 minutes is an injury factor. You have the tie that takes away that, you know, even more.
Well, maybe they should let the games end in a tie. But then, you know, then we get into all kind of skirmishes about who should be in the playoffs and who's not, and what does a tie matter, you know, things like that.
But the most important thing is Chuck said he doesn't like ties, so we won't go with that.
yeah, you know, I'm not big on ties.
The next thing, they changed the touchback on the kickoff to the 35-yard line. I'm thinking that's going to encourage teams to keep the ball in play, and that might lead to more injuries, but I'll leave that alone. You like that rule, Chuck? Touchback to the 35?
I don't really. I mean, it doesn't move the needle with me one way or the other. I could care less. I really do.
Just think of a couple of years ago, it was like at the 20. Now it's at the 35. David, how do you feel about that change?
Well, 15 additional yards. This is all about offense. All about offense, and encouraging at the same time maybe a pop-up kick, you know, maybe high in the air to the 5, and then let's see if we can tackle pretty well. I don't know.
And they can't squib kick it, right? Because it's got to land at
In a zone.
certain zone. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't either.
NFL tinkers with something every year.
So yeah, my next question was that really broke? I mean, they were putting it at the 30. Chuck, you yarn earlier. Was that broke? Did that needed to be fixed?
I didn't think so. I didn't. I mean, you know, they tinker. They look at the analytics and the analysis, and they got all their people crunching the numbers, and this is the results of some of that stuff. So I guess I'm okay either way.
5 yards makes a big difference.
Yeah.
We're now 15. Next year it'll be into 40.
They'll give them the ball in the red zone. Okay, I'm gonna touch on a couple proposals that didn't pass. I'll throw this one out here. David, the tush push has been tabled until May. They have a split 16 for, 16 against, and they need a 3/4 majority for a rule to change. Should the tush push be banned, David?
I like the Eagles, and the Eagles are the king of tush push. But there's something wrong with that play. I don't like it. I don't really like it. And I think there's a chance that, you know, when somebody ruptures an Achilles tendon, because that's the injury that's going to happen, then it'll stop.
Chuck, how do you feel about? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm done.
They took the rules, came up with this idea. It's been successful for them. I don't think they should be punished for it. I think they shouldn't change it. If if it's so good and people think they can execute this, then they should come up with their version of the tush push. I don't think it's that simple. So
one time it was illegal to push a runner, and they changed the rule where they made it legal to do it. The only question I have is sometimes, and I'll throw this out to both of you guys, does it seem like sometimes forward progress is stopped for a second and then, they get like an extra push? And it seems like the refs don't know when to stop it, call forward progress, stop it to me sometimes.
What's confusing to me is when Brady was with New England and they needed 1 yard on 4th and 1, he'd go under center, take the snap, and dive forward, get the 1 yard almost every time. I don't know what I just don't like this going 7 yards back in a shotgun. I don't know. That whole 1 yard thing drives me nuts. I don't know why they can't quarterback sneak a 1 yarder. Brady used to do it all the time.
Well, the king of the quarterback sneak to me will always be Bart Starr in the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. That's the quarter, and he didn't need a tush push for that. No, probably because the hands were too cold.
And the field might have been frozen too.
Oh, it was.
Jerry Kramer threw a good block.
Yes, he did. Right. Jerry Kramer, what a great spokesman for the league. Great gentleman.
Yeah, he wrote
God bless his soul.
Yeah, he wrote a great book too. I can't remember.
Yes, he did. He did.
So here's the last thing I would throw at you guys.
Fuzzy Thurston, Jerry Kramer, and Fuzzy Thurston were the guards on that team.
Here's the last rule change that didn't occur, and I want to see what you guys think about. The Detroit Lions suggested that defensive holding and illegal contact are no longer automatic first downs. So, and it's a lot of times when you might have 3rd and 20 and somebody will, have illegal contact. A lot of those penalties are normally 5 yards. Rule was voted down, but what do you guys think those were legitimate suggestions? Chuck, I'll start with you.
That's a good question, Larry. So here's my answer to that. And maybe I'm just a terrible way to get out of this. As long as everybody's playing under the same rules, Larry, I don't care either way. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't bother me either way, to be honest with you. So I don't have a reaction, good or bad.
David, how do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, there's holding or illegal contact on every single play. Every single play. It's just a matter of whether they call it or not. Now, should it be a first down automatically? No. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that they didn't pass this rule, because holding and illegal contact need to be modified because it happens on every play and it shouldn't be escalated into a first down.
Yeah, I think about it when it's like third. I've seen teams they have like 3rd and 20 or something like that. Then they have illegal contact, like 3 or 4 yards down the field as automatic first down. But the thing that we keep talking about, this is all about offense. So those would be things that would benefit the defense, and nobody goes for that.
That's true. Very true, Larry.
Very true. Well, look, that's all I got today. So
good job.
Go around and see if we have any closing comments. And Dave, we'll start with you. You have any closing comments?
I have no closing comment today. I was going to talk about a great hockey player, but I'm going to defer that to someone who still lives in the nation's capital. You, Larry.
I got it covered. Chuck, do you have a closing comment?
Yes, I do. Nikola. All day, too.
Nikola Jokic.
Nikola Jokic, the center for the Denver Nuggets, I just think he's an amazing player. Everyone knows that, but he's just even more amazing. Last night he had 61 points. He had 12 assists, 10-12 rebounds. He's averaging a triple-double. If the season ends and he ends up averaging a triple-double, right now he's averaging 30, 12, and 10. He'll be the 3rd player in the history of the game behind Oscar and Westbrook. He's a center, right? And I just want to by the way, he's got 3 MVPs. He has a runner-up to an MVP. He won't win it this year. And I think he won't win it because Shea has had a fantastic year and people are sick and tired of voting for Joker, but he's deserving of it. He might be the best player in the league, period, full stop. Just want to give credit to Joker.
Well said. I'm not sure he's not going to win it. SGA had to lead it first, but I'm not sure now. Yeah, I'm going to talk about Ovechkin. David and I, coincidentally, we talked about it before. So, David, feel free to join in at any time.
Sure.
But I think around the same time LeBron James came in, we're in the Washington area, and this is the sports we don't talk about much on this show, or hardly ever. We were blessed with this guy named, Alexander Ovechkin, and he is within 3 goals of tying Wayne Gretzky for the all-time goal scoring and 4 from having it outright. He's 39 years old too, just like LeBron James, a guy that has just stood the test of time, and he's having a great season this season, and he missed 5 weeks because of a broken leg. It's no doubt in my mind that he would have had that record by now had he not been injured, because he rarely goes a week without scoring a goal. So I want to take my hat off to him and wish him nothing but the best. And I'm counting on him. I'm hoping he can break the record before the season is over. David, you have something to add, please?
The only thing I will add to that, because you said it all, Larry, is Ovechkin and the Capitals make Washington's sports scene livable, doable. He's been a great player for the nation's capital, coming from Russia. I think he's Russian, or was he?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. He wasn't Ukraine. I think he's Russian.
Yeah, he's Russian.
Ovechkin has been a great ambassador for the city of Washington, D.C. Great. And I wish him well. Even though
I just want to add one last thing to that too.
Yeah.
Is that he's been with the same team the whole time, which I think is pretty cool in professional sports. The same team the whole time. And good luck to the Great Eight.
Amen. Amen.
On that note, we're going to end our show. We want to thank all of our viewers for watching, and as well as comments. Those of you who didn't comment, we thank you for watching too. And join us next week, 7 o'clock on Wednesday, for Real Fellas Talk Sports.
Thank you, Larry. Good job.